CashFlow Diary Podcast, episode 301.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and welcome to another episode where you are going to learn something. So what does that mean today? Well, today it means you're going to learn the secrets of growth, right? Exponential growth. What do I mean by that? What about doubling your revenue? Would that be awesome? What if you could do that in 3 years or less? Well, I happen to have with me today a person who knows how to help you do those types of things and more. And he's recently authored a book whose title I absolutely love. You ready for this? Meetings Suck. Now, it doesn't mean what you think, but we're going to learn about that as well as him as we continue through today. Now, interestingly enough, one of the interesting things that I find is the fact that he's already done the growing thing. He's helped companies. Have you heard of 1-800-GOT-JUNK? Now, all of you fix and flippers, I know you have. So make sure that you're paying attention. If you've been looking to grow, if you want to know how to do it, this is the episode for you to tune into. I have with me none other than Cameron Herold. He's been an international speaker and author, as I have already stated, but now you and I get to ask him some questions to find out what we can do to make sure that our business grows too. Cameron, you there?
Hey, Jay. Thanks for having me.
I am so glad that you are here because you know we want to know how to grow.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, good. Now, before we get that far, I have to ask you the same question I ask everybody else the first time that they're here. Simply put, I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, the Hulk, all of these people. I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a lot in common. Chief among them, occasionally we get dressed up. We use our superhuman strengths or at least we feel like they're superhuman from time to time, to increase the quality of life of other people, save them, and providing our products and services, et cetera, et cetera. But also like superheroes, entrepreneurs have a beginning. Before Spider-Man was, slinging from buildings, he was just a photographer. So what we want to know is before you were the pivotal CEO or COO that you've been, and before the consultancy, before the books, before all of these things, who is Cameron Herold?
I'm a small town kid from Northern Ontario in Canada, and I was groomed to be an entrepreneur. From a very, very young age, I was taught that having a job was a bad idea, a bad deal, and that controlling your own destiny, controlling your time, and being an entrepreneur was a much, much better way of life. And I was literally groomed from probably 7 years old to be an entrepreneur. So today, my brother, my sister, and I each own our own companies that we've started. My dad was an entrepreneur. Both my grandfathers were entrepreneurs. My wife was an entrepreneur, her brother is an entrepreneur, and her mom and dad were both entrepreneurs. So it's all I've ever really known. I don't really understand people that have jobs. I don't really understand people that work day to day. So before everything started, I was an entrepreneur.
I don't think you had a choice, my friend.
I had no choice.
I'm like, okay, I've never heard somebody with that strong of everybody. I mean, like everybody was doing something other than the 9-to-5 job.
No, I even did a TED talk on this 6 years ago about raising kids to be entrepreneurs. I have a main talk that's on the main TED website. It's been there for 6 years about raising kids as entrepreneurs. And I literally have always been doing entrepreneurial ventures. My first one, I was 7 years old.
Well, okay, so what was the one at 7?
At 7, I was going door to door. I was at a dry cleaner. So I was taught at a very young age to be entrepreneurial and spot opportunities and spot, a quarter on the ground, you pick it up. So you spot an opportunity, you capitalize on it. I was at a dry cleaning store and there was a sign on the wall that said, "We will pay you 2 cents for every coat hanger." So they used to, back in the early 70s, they would pay you to bring old coat hangers back in, and they would recycle and reuse those coat hangers. So I got on the yellow pages and sat down with a long extension cord phone and started phoning all the dry cleaners and negotiating with them. And I got one of them up to 3 cents per coat hangers, which is more than they wanted to pay, but they knew I was a kid. So I learned how to negotiate. And then I went door to door in the neighborhood collecting coat hangers from all of my neighbors when my mom thought I was out playing with my friends.
Okay. That's awesome. That I love it. I love it. And for those of you that are wondering, an extension cord phone is, well, before the phone you have now, there was a cord that was actually attached to it. I know you may not have seen one of those.
It's a rotary dial phone with a long cord. That was a remote control, or remote phone was the one that had the 20-foot cord.
Yeah, exactly. I remember those. Okay, so this is awesome. So that you come from a world and an entire family, that has to be such an advantage from a emotional, mental support structure that I can't even possibly understand or relate to. Yes?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an advantage in that, you're groomed that way and you don't see entrepreneurship as a risk, and everyone around you sees it as normal, and, chasing off after profits and building something doesn't seem like a bad thing. So, being an entrepreneur since around 1998 or 99 has started to become cool with the .com era. But really, prior to that, being an entrepreneur was almost vilified. Being profit-centric you were looked at as being greedy and capitalist. So it's only been less than 20 years that being an entrepreneur has actually really been cool. So I grew up in an era where it wasn't cool, and at least I felt normal because I was surrounded by people.
Right. Yeah, there was no Starbucks coffee shop where people hung out with man buns and discussed the profit. Got it.
Not at all. Now it's really cool. But back then I was just like, I was some outcast. I had to. So that part was good. And then being able to learn the lessons and learning the lessons from people that I respected and seeing them and absorbing it was easier. I think that the downside was, I maybe missed some opportunities to have fun as a kid. And I probably grew up more serious than I needed to because I was always doing all these entrepreneurial ventures instead of out being a kid.
Yeah, well, okay. So let's talk about that, though. When it comes to the whole idea of being too serious or too focused, and because there are a number of people, and some of you who are current clients, you know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm probably talking to you if you're wondering. Maybe they spend an extra amount of time on the ski slopes. Maybe they do some extra things, but they say they want this entrepreneurial thing to work, but they're doing all these other things too that may not necessarily be dedicated towards making it work. How does one separate am I really serious, or am I really going after this? Do I have to cut out everything else, Cameron? How do we make our business become something that is, worthwhile, so to speak, that we actually love and enjoy at the same time?
Yeah, I think you actually do stay kind of reasonably balanced. You do stay engaged in other activities. You have to remain interested to remain interesting, and you need to detach and plug yourself back in and recharge. I think too often entrepreneurs start to feel guilty if they're not working 80, 100-hour weeks, but the reality is you're unproductive when you get past about 40 or 50 hours anyway. You're just not as productive. There's no superstar athlete that can operate on full absolute peak performance for 80 hours a week. So why do we think we can as an entrepreneur? You need time to recharge your batteries, to refresh, to relax, to get introspective, to disconnect from your true unique abilities. So taking time to have activities and have friends and go for lunch and just let your brain relax is a big thing. So I went for a run for an hour just before you and I hopped on our call, and that was just to disconnect. I'm going to go for a massage at the end of the day today. I'm going to go and hang out with my wife this evening. I took 4 weeks vacation out of the last 6 just to disconnect, and we went to Bali and to Hawaii in our family cottage. So, and I didn't work. I didn't check email. I didn't read business books. I didn't read business periodicals. So you need to be able to disconnect from that. But I had to learn that as more of a mature entrepreneur. It was harder for me in the early days. I used to feel guilty.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I had a friend tell me once, I was on the phone and he was like, you just need to take Friday off. I'm like, what do you mean? How can I can't do that. That's not right. And well, long story short, that conversation has resulted in from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday, you will not find me. You just won't find me because he was right. It has served like certain things like sleep, drinking more water and just that rest. I didn't realize actually made me more productive. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's huge stuff. I'm actually co-authoring a book right now with Hal Elrod. We're co-authoring The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs together. And that's just one of the things that we need to get people to understand is you need to start your day off right, but you also need to finish it off in the right way as well. You can't just work.
Okay. So now was the examples that you had around you, was that where you learned that you can't just work, or did that just evolve?
No, I did actually, and interestingly enough, I think I saw two sides of the coin from a few of the people around me. So my father was very much a hard worker. However, he played golf every single Saturday morning at 7 a.m. and was home by 11. Every Wednesday, he was at quote unquote the doctor's office, but everybody knew that was the golf course, and he would leave Wednesday at 1 o'clock and go to the doctor's office. And his employees and staff all knew as well, but they were glad to get him out of the office. Like get him out of here. We can relax. So he would de-stress, and he would always go on a couple of vacations every year with just my mom, and then he would go on a couple of vacations with the kids, and he didn't have a cell phone, and he didn't read business books. He played, he hung out, he had drinks with friends, and he relaxed. And but when he worked, he worked. He didn't futz around and spend time on social media and spend time on the projects that didn't matter. He was very focused. So I got to see both sides of that for sure.
Got it. Okay, so now that we're talking about work, there are many who I know that are listening who are trying to figure out, because I know this was a challenge for me when I first started years ago, was, okay, I know what to do in a job because I'm told. But now, not only do I not know what to do, I got to make whatever I think is a great idea grow into actual profit.
Right.
How do you learn that?
This is kind of my superpower. It's funny because when you were talking about superheroes, I was trying to figure out which superhero worked backwards, but I kind of see everything in reverse.
Okay.
I see the end result and work it backwards. I see the vision and work it backwards. I see the goal and I break it down. So I actually kind of think of everything backwards, which is how I tend to get more done. And then I tend to work on the critical few things versus the important many. I think a lot of entrepreneurs get trapped into a lot of the busy work and being busy and spending time. And at the end of the day, their day's done, but they haven't necessarily gotten done what they need to get done. Sorry, my wife just walked by and she looked great. I just smiled and got distracted. And you can keep this in the podcast.
I will. Don't worry, because we all get motivation from many different sources. Life is too short
to not enjoy beautiful women. So my superpower, I think, is seeing those things and working them backwards. And I think a lot of people just wake up in the morning and try to make their business bigger instead of doing what I outlined in my first book, Double Double. Chapter 1 is all about putting this vivid vision and describing your company in vivid detail 3 years in the future, describing every aspect of your company as if it's already come true, and then figuring out how do I work it backwards? What things do I do? Almost like building a home or a jigsaw puzzle. If you're building a jigsaw puzzle, you look at the picture on the box, and then you do the corners and the sides, and then you build in from there. Well, you should build your business the same way.
Got it. Now, there's something you said that I think some people may have missed. You dropped the concept of you focus on the critical few tasks versus the important many tasks.
So as an example, this morning, the very first thing I did this morning was I thought about what are the top 3 things I need to do today.
Mm-hmm.
Using an app called Commit to 3, I committed to those top 3 business things to one of my best friends, Joe Polish, and Joe sent me, using the same app, his top 3 for his business day today as well. Then I sent my top 3 personal goals to a friend of mine, Gordy Buffton, and Gordy sent me his top 3 personal goals for today as well. So now I've literally set my top 3 business, my top 3 personal, and those 3 goals nag me all day long. I've already gotten 2 of my business done and 1 of my personal done. But I know from this point until the end of the day, I'll be nagged to get those done. And I'll get the emails done and I'll do my other work and my other meetings. But at least I knew the 3 big things I wanted to knock off today, and I'll get them done. Now, you repeat that habit over 220 odd business days, and you're starting to get some pretty cool stuff move forward.
Yeah, I can see it. I see it's getting on base every day, just redefined in very, very simple ways. I'd love it. That's
an easy tool that all of our listeners can use as well. Commit to 3 is actually an app that they can download, and it's free.
Free is good. That means it's going to cost you a lot to use it. Just remember, it costs you discipline and time. And I'm assuming it sounds like there's a sharing capability between friends in there.
Well, you can also do it amongst business associates. So I have some of the CEOs that I coach using it with their teams. I have one group that has his entire marketing department using it together so that everyone on the marketing team each commits to the top 3 things they're going to get done.
Nice.
Like a sprint throughout the day. So it's a really great way just to focus on the critical few things and then knowing that the busy work will get done as well.
Right. That was the important many. I totally understood. Now, you mentioned something really briefly, and it's the title of the book, so I've got to ask. You say meetings suck, and I know for many people they just went, yes, they do. Tell us more. Why did you write it? What does meetings suck really mean to you? And how does that relate? How can that help us as entrepreneurs go out there and build our cash flow?
Sure. I built 1-800-GOT-JUNK for over a period of 7 years and then left there 9 years ago, and I've been coaching CEOs ever since. I took them from 2 million to 106 million in 6 years. But in the last 9 years in coaching all these entrepreneurs all over the world, all of them at some point have said their meetings suck. And I kind of laugh and say, you know what? Meetings don't suck. We suck at running meetings. And I thought about the other day, or about 6 or 8 months ago, as the book was launching, we would never send our kid off to play Little League baseball without teaching him how to hold a bat or hold or throw a ball or catch a ball. We'd stand there 4 feet away and teach them the basics so they didn't feel completely embarrassed showing up for their first day at Little League. And yet we would let our employees go and attend a meeting or participate in a meeting or lead a meeting without any training whatsoever on running. So the reality is meetings don't suck at all. We've just never spent any of the time giving them the basics and the really good tools to run highly effective meetings. Because when you do, meetings are very, very profoundly impactful.
Okay. So what would you say then, because I'm sure many of us on here have either participated in meetings and ran meetings that we all went, man, that sucked. And we're not looking forward to the meeting that we have this Thursday. So help us out. What do we need to do to help our meetings suck, to become better at it? That suck less is what I was going to say. Exactly. Exactly what I was thinking.
Well, I'll give you a couple shortcuts. Every meeting has to start on time, period. Just start. Every meeting has to stop 5 minutes early, which gives you time to walk down the hall, talk to your assistant, get a cup of coffee, and be sitting down to start your next meeting on time. Imagine if you were an Olympic swimmer showing up for a swim race that started at 8:05. You can't show up right at 8:05 and run onto the deck and go, hey, I'm here, because the gun's going off. You need to be there 5 minutes early. So if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. And you need to build that mantra into your organization. Book every meeting for half the time you first think about booking it for. So if you're going to book it for a day, book it for a half a day. You will get it done in less time. If you think about doing an hour call, do it in 30 minutes. And then the final kind of core point is every meeting must have a tight agenda and allow your employees to say no agenda, no attenda. And the agenda just basically has to be, what are we covering? In what order are we covering those items? And how many minutes are we going to spend on each of the agenda items? And just a very simple, tight agenda like that, with starting on time, stopping on time, and booking the meetings for half the time, you're going to get more done with less people faster.
So, you don't like sitting around the table for 4 hours just trying to figure out what everybody's going to talk about?
It's why I would never nonprofit. I'll go crazy working with government or nonprofit.
Right. Totally understood. Okay. So is that how did you start out running meetings that way? Is that just how because my brain does not work that way.
Yeah, I was got some very, very early training in one of my first real businesses was with a company called College Pro Painters, and I was a franchisee And College Pro essentially has to grow a 9,000 person company from scratch every year. They get 800 franchisees who go out and get 8,000 painters, produce 64 million in revenue between May 1st and August 31st, and then 9,000 people go back to school. And I was on the leadership team of that company, building the 9,000 person company every year for 7 years. We became very operationally excellent at not wasting time because we didn't have time to waste. So yeah, I was hardwired and trained on these systems because 1 week was 7% of our year. Most companies, 1 week is only 2% of the year.
Wow. That just sounds like an impressive undertaking, no matter where or when or who you're working with there.
Oh yeah, no, we're like operationally, and it's where some of my strengths come from. Is I'm amongst the dust in the world at interviewing, hiring, selection, culture, time management, operations, execution, because we had to do it. There's not a lot of companies anywhere that add 9,000 people a year for 7 years in a row. So you just learn that you only have 3 resources: people, time, and money, and you can't squander any of those.
Wow. Got it. So let me ask this question then, because you're touching on subjects that I know that are pain points for many, especially real estate investors, because every time we're in a deal and every time we want to scale or grow, we have to expand our team and our capabilities and resources, people, time, and money. And there's a lot of people involved in pulling one building together. What would you say are the top mistakes you've seen most people make when it comes to hiring folks? As you've heard me say before, and I say again, you're not going to be able to make your dream come true by yourself. Wealth is a team sport. Hopefully, you're being able to pick up today some things that will help you become a bigger, better, badder investor, and more importantly, take that next step on your journey. So, speaking of next steps, why don't you go over to CashFlowDiary.com/free book. Again, CashFlowDiary.com/free book and get a free PDF copy of my book, Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. It's a great start. It's a good next step. Now, let's get back to the rest of the show.
Most people just hire the person. Most people hire based on the candidates that they have, but they don't sit and think critically about what are they looking for and what do they need that person to do, and then kind of what measurable results can they see if the person has already done. So as an example, I was talking to a friend of mine in town who's a real estate investor, a guy named Dean Graziosi, who many of you may know Dean, but Dean's built a really cool business in the real estate space. And we were talking about people. And I said, at the end of the day, if you were hiring a swimmer, most people would look for a fast swimmer who's strong, they're experienced with all strokes, they're competitive, and they're a team player. But I said, that could get you a 10-year-old. Now, if you're looking for a really measurable result on a swimmer, you'd look for someone who has won Olympic records, who's broken world records, who's won individual and team races, and then you actually go out and interview and find people and recruit people who have done it before. So most people simply hire someone who is in front of them, who is strong on the surface, but maybe has never done it before. So you need to sit down and find out, what do I need them to do? And then where do I find those people that have already done it, instead of just putting a job posting up? The next part of that is most people who are looking for jobs, like on Monster or Craigslist or industry job boards, those are the B and C players. A players are never looking for a job. A players have never had to look for a job. They get poached. So you need to figure out where the A players are, make sure that they've done the work you need them to do, and then you need to go and poach them to bring them into your organization.
Ooh, love it. I love it, because I'm sitting here thinking about some of the best individuals that I've poached now, and that's exactly how it was. They weren't necessarily looking for something at the time, but they're still here, and that's what's awesome.
Yeah, if you sit down and say to them, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to do this and do this and do this and do this, and I'm pretty sure that you've done all those 4 things before, and our culture rocks. Do you want to come and join me?" They start smiling and going, "Oh my God, that sounds like my dream job."
Got it. Yeah.
But most people don't start with the end in mind, right? Again, I reverse engineer everything. So I always think about, what do I need the person to do? And then where do I find the people who have already done it? And how do I recruit the people that have already done it? Because I know they'll be able to get it done.
So, okay. All right. I'm hearing this wisdom and I'm with you 100%. I've bumped my head on most of these things that you are bringing up. How does someone today, I mean, in my opinion, and I've said this before, when I look at the marketplace, the barrier to entry is willingness, period. That's the barrier to entry when it comes to wanting to make a business happen. However, we lack so much in skill set and knowledge and wisdom and all of these other things that you were clearly have in abundance all the way from 7 to now. How does one face that and go, yes, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and actually get started?
Thank you for asking this question, because this is where, and I mentioned this in my TED Talk, this is where the school system fundamentally messed up almost every human being in North America.
Hold on. Can you say that again? Because somebody was running on the treadmill, washing dishes, and wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so the school system fundamentally messed up almost every kid in North America over the last 100 years, and here's why. They told us that the only smart kid in the room were the kids who got the A+, or the 98% averages on the test, and they said everybody else wasn't as good. They said the B students and the C students were stupid. The C's and the D's were stupid. They said that the only smart and good and worthy kids were the ones who could memorize everything. So think about this for a second. Why do we actually have to memorize anything when all the information is already accessible? Right. Maybe the smartest kids in the room are the ones who know how to network. Maybe the smartest kids in the room are the ones who are vulnerable and can put their hand up and say, I don't know how to do this. Who does? I don't know how to do this. Who can show me? Who can help me? Who connect me? Or Google. Maybe the smartest kids in the room aren't the ones who know all this information, but know where they're going, and then can reverse engineer that and say, who are the people that have gone before me that can show me how to do these components? And maybe I don't need to hire full-time people at all. Maybe I can hire experts to work on 4-hour projects, because all we need to do is hire people to get stuff done. We don't need to hire people. I had a CEO that I coached the other day that runs a $100 million company. He said, I need to hire a director of marketing. And I said, no, you have a bunch of marketing projects you need to get done. And he goes, well, I need a director of marketing. I said, no, you have a bunch of marketing projects that you need to get done. He goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, let's make a list of all those projects. Can we delete a few of them? Can we delegate a few of them? Can we outsource a few of them? Or do we have enough left over that it makes up to a full-time job? What it turned out to be is he needed about 3 or 4 contract people for about 10 hours a week. He didn't need a full-time person at all.
Right.
And if employees or people that are listening are thinking they have to know all this stuff, that's because the school system said they had to be the smart person in the room. But maybe they don't have to know it. Maybe they just have to know what they need to get done and find the other kids in the room that know how to do it and get them to do it for you. Maybe we could have collaborated and everyone worked together on the test, and maybe we all could have gotten an A.
I know, right? Man, chemistry is coming to mind right now.
I cheated in almost every class in high school. The only way to get through, and I still got a C-.
Right. It's like, dude, come on.
But no one's ever asked me for my transcript, so it really doesn't matter, right? Nobody ever asked.
I know.
But I felt like a failure for my 12 years in school and my 4 years in university. I felt like a complete failure because I was never a smart student.
Hold on. You actually, okay, so I started the university. I just I was like, this is not me. So you actually finished?
Yeah, I took 4 years to do a 3-year degree, and I wasted 2 of them because I was running a fraternity, and I was managing a business, and I was running a bar, and I was on the university ski team. So I got more out of university by being in clubs and engaged and networking and running businesses than I actually did from the courses themselves.
Well, and this brings up an interesting conversation. I mean, being surrounded by so many entrepreneurs, what was the impetus to even go?
Yeah, it was probably a lack of actually sitting down and talking about what I really wanted to do and just doing what everybody was doing. I think if I was to have approached it today, I probably wouldn't have gone. I would have just gone off on my entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah, that's kind of what. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense.
I could have lived with a few 20-year-olds and parties just as fun and had just as much of a good time and and made money and had no debt, right?
Right. It would have been cheaper. Totally understood. So now, because you've been surrounded, I'll say your entire life, by this information, by the understanding. You've got the support group built in. Most people, those listening and otherwise, don't. And we have to learn to build it. How important has mentorship, advisors, compatriots exactly been for you to actually make it? How important is that for the entrepreneur today?
I think that's very important, but I think we have a tool or a number of tools at our disposal that we did not have 10 years ago and further back, and that's social media. So prior to 10 years ago, really, when Facebook was launching 10 years ago and Twitter launching 8 years ago, and we didn't have the social tools to be able to connect ourselves with the masses and with the one degree of separation from everyone. So the only way we could get to know people was at the pub or in our sports or in our communities. So our networks were much smaller. So you had to become, so it was about being smarter or being very connected to a hyper smart group, a smaller group. Now you can actually, as long as you're vulnerable and post something, you can say, I don't know how to do this. Who does? Because as we grow up in this world, we're all kind of hardwired to help individuals. 99.9% of us want to help somebody on a daily basis. We're just hardwired that way. So when somebody says, I need help, we're willing to help them. But most people don't ask for help. Because I think in a lot of ways, again, the school system messed us up, that we feel like if we say we don't know how to do something, we look like a failure. Instead, imagine if you posted something saying, I don't know how to do this. Can anybody introduce me to somebody who does? Maybe now you look like the hero because you've asked for help and someone was willing to use their strength to help you.
You know what, Cameron, it's like, I try to say those same things and because there's a lot that I know that I don't know how to do, but it doesn't matter because I know I can go find the people. Yeah. And I intentionally stay ignorant in some areas for that purpose. It's like, look, you're going to do it bigger, better, faster than I would anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to actually learn a lot of the internet marketing tactics because I know there's experts out there. So why should I spend? What I should do though is spend my time getting to know who they are. So instead of trying to learn it, what I want to do is learn who knows it. So I've spent a fair amount of money in the last few years joining some groups and networks just to plug myself into the right groups. So as an example, I'm part of the Genius Network. I'm part of Mastermind Talks. I'm part of Maverick. I'm part of Strategic Coach. I go to the EO and YPO chapter events. Like I'm very, very plugged into these entrepreneurial networks and communities. And I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to go in and tell people what my goals are, tell them what my vivid vision is for my company 3 years out, and let them help me reverse engineer it. So as long as I'm always talking about where I'm going, the smart people that I'm getting to know will help me get there.
Indeed. I love it so much. Now, one of the things, okay, because you brought up this topic, so you open the door. I want to walk through. Is I strongly believe that one of the skill sets that the school system, education, does not help us with, but we must learn is there's like actually a technique to learning how to fail, and not knowing how to fail makes it challenging to even want to broach the subject, with two exceptions majorly, one being artists, the other being sports athletes. Artists and athletes, they know how to fail and still move forward because they don't get to, you don't get to play the music right until you practice, rehearse, drill, and try it again. You don't get to do the play right until you practice, drill, rehearse, try it again. I don't know how many times you fell off the skis, but I'm assuming you didn't go down perfectly all the time.
I fell a lot. I broke a lot of bones. One of the things about artists and sports is there really is no perfect. You can always have done better. And athletes and artists learn and musicians learn in the early days that there is no such thing as perfect, and no one can judge you and say that you're not perfect because you can always keep improving. And I think that's where people need to learn that in the rest of our lives is failure is really just a construct. It's not anything. No one has the right to say whether you passed or failed. And I think that's kind of where I think the school system again failed us is what they should have done was taught us to learn, taught us to collaborate, taught us to research and find information, taught us to pull together the reports, taught us to work together as a team, taught us to leverage everybody's strengths. And then maybe if we could even pick the stuff we wanted to learn about, we would have enjoyed learning. But they didn't do it that way. They said, sit down and memorize the War of 1812 and why. Do we really care? Like, it doesn't matter, like, how many beads were used to purchase Manhattan, or like, who cares? Like, I want to learn about X and be hungry for the sake of learning. So I think the people that need to realize this part on failure now is there's no need to fail as an entrepreneur. There's no need to fail in the real estate business when you can turn to others who are 60, 70 years old that are dying to give back and share their wisdom if just somebody would ask. And we're almost doing a disservice to those people who want to help by not asking for their help.
Oh, okay. I did this earlier. I got to do it again. Say that again, because I need to make sure people understand that. I've been asked from time to time, Jay, what's your secret? How did you do the things you do? And I'm like, it's not because I'm great. It's because I ask a lot of people questions until I find the answer. But I need you to say that again, because that is so important when it comes to being able to make forward progress, is knowing who to ask.
Yeah. And so I only learned this a couple years ago, and it was that there's a bunch of people out there that are experts. Everyone in some way is an expert at something. And if we don't ask those people for help on their area of expertise, they don't have an opportunity to feel good about how good they are. They don't have an opportunity to use their expertise and help someone else. So by not asking for help, by not being vulnerable, by trying to be stubborn and figure it out on our own, we're doing a disservice to the rest of the people around us. We like to help others. All of our listeners like to help other people. When we're asked, we enjoy the feeling of helping someone. So why wouldn't we give them the opportunity to help us as well?
Indeed. Now, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like this is the reason or parts of why maybe the COO Alliance is coming together. Is this the genesis of what you're hoping to achieve with that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many. I've been a chief operating officer a few times in different companies. Most notably, I was the COO for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And in all of my time in building companies, there were always groups for entrepreneurs. There was Entrepreneurs Organization and Young Presidents Organization and the Genius Network, and the list goes on. And there were groups for marketers, and there were groups for IT professionals and groups for engineers, but there was never any groups or masterminds or networks for the second in command. It was kind of the misunderstood role, but it was a key role, almost the yin and yang role in the organization with the CEO, but no one had ever created an organization exclusively for the second in command, the VP operations, general manager, et cetera. So I've put together what I call the COO Alliance, and we're having multiple events per year in Scottsdale, and people select 3 of the 4 events to come to. So that's exactly why I put it on, was I recognized that we needed to have that space for them to go to and learn from each other and share information and share ideas and best practices.
Absolutely love it. Here's something I also believe very strongly. I believe that there's so much wisdom that is in a group like that you can't actually put it all in a book. You kind of got to be there in order to grab it. Would you agree?
Yeah, and that's even why I'm not really the core of that group. In a lot of groups, you have kind of the thought leader. I'm not trying to be the thought leader for the COO Alliance. It's really that mastermind of people that are running like companies. So, the little bit larger companies, but they typically are doing between 5 million and 500 million in revenue, typically between about 50 employees and 4,000 employees. And it's just really that strong, trusted resource of these second in commands who want to get better in their role and who want to build better companies.
Yeah, totally understood. And just for the sake of clarification, because there may be an individual or two, what would you say is the role of the COO?
So the first and kind of most primary role is to make the CEO iconic. So the role of the second in command is to buffer the CEO from bad news, to allow the CEO to be the bearer of good news, and then the COO is kind of the operational bearer of anything negative. The second is to really buffer the CEO and pick up on all of their areas of either weakness or the areas that they don't love, to allow the CEO to work in their area of unique ability. So that's why you want a second in command who loves the stuff and is amazing at what they do, and they wouldn't necessarily want to do the stuff the entrepreneur does. So it's a very yin-yang approach. But they can be completely different COOs. You can have one who's very outward-facing or one who's inward-facing. You could have one who's operationally focused, one who's systems focused, one who's sales and marketing focused. Very different engineering process focused, very different types of second in commands. But it's really to be that balance or the yin-yang with the CEO and then to make the CEO iconic. Those would really be the two primary roles.
Excellent. And before I get the question, because I know someone's going to email or ask, what would you say? What's the best way to attract that CEO that is the yin to my yang?
So for the CEO, best way to attract the COO is first to start making a list of everything that they do. So you, as an entrepreneur, the CEO, make an activity inventory, almost like someone was videotaping you for the course of a month, and then write down everything you see yourself doing. And then categorize all the stuff that you do in one of four ways. I for incompetent, C for competent, E for excellent, and U for unique ability. So incompetent is you suck at it. Competent is, I'm okay at it. Excellent is I'm really, really good at it, but I don't love doing it. And unique ability is I love doing it. I get energized by doing it. When people watch me, they get energized. It's like I would do it for free, except my kids have to sleep. And that's unique ability. Then what you want to do as the COO is delegate all of the I's and C's and hire a COO who takes all of the excellence off your plate. And that happens to be their unique ability areas. So you want a COO who takes all the things that you're excellent at but don't love doing, but they happen to love those things and they're excellent as well. And that's where you have a really true strong match. The second part of that really strong match, though, is the trust and really making sure that you build the very strong, unbreakable team like a marriage or a partnership is, right? Really working on that team approach constantly.
Excellent. And for those of you listening, I'm going to translate that for one small second, because I know you guys have heard it before, but this is why Jay doesn't do paperwork or QuickBooks. Okay. There you go. Simple as that. I don't do those things because those are would you say incompetent? And what was the other one?
So you've got incompetent, competent, excellent, and unique ability.
Yeah, yes. So yeah, you know how many times I tried to do my own books before I realized, you know what, I should actually find someone else to do this. And how many times I've tried to do my own paperwork. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but doing paperwork is like, oh my God.
Even think around your own home. If you have the ability to earn $100 an hour or $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour or $10,000 an hour, if you have the ability to earn that kind of wage, let's even just say on $100 an hour, if you have the ability to earn that, why would you do housework? Why would you cut your own lawn? Why would you make your own food? Why would you spend time going to the grocery store? Why would you spend time doing $15 an hour tasks when you could outsource those and spend that hour or two either with your family or friends or making $100 an hour? So you start outsourcing everything that you're competent at, or that you don't love doing, so that you only do the unique ability areas.
Exactly. I wish there was like more schooling for all of what would be really neat. What I think would be really neat, Cameron, is if there was a school or some sort of educational process for each of the C-suites, and that the entrepreneurs could understand how to work with them. Because I know that was one of my challenges is as the company grew was figuring out what is a CFO, CEO, COO supposed to do? Because I don't know. So my question to you really is for all of those people who just don't know how to even utilize you're right. You got the three resources, but we don't know how to always utilize the people. What's going to be the best way for them to get, more information from you? Because I feel like you would know how to help us learn that. Yeah.
So I think it really comes down to the ability for you to start building your network, or for our listeners to build their network of other entrepreneurs in their space, and to be able to have that shared resource and time where you disconnect from your iPhone and your laptops and you just go and hang out and have breakfast or go for a hike or go for a run or play golf together and talk to them about what they're doing and how they're doing it, and not pretend that we always have our shit together. Like, it's okay that we don't have to do this stuff, right? The reality is all of us wake up every day thinking this is the biggest thing I've ever done. Every entrepreneur at some point in their day realizes that I don't really know what I'm doing. This is the biggest business I've ever run.
You're not supposed to tell him that, Cameron. Come on, man.
But as soon as we're okay with that, then we can start learning.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm working with the CEO of a major, one of the top 80 companies in North America. I'm not going to give you the name of the brand, but he runs a major company. And I sat down with him years ago at breakfast, and he laughed at me and he said, I kind of wonder when people are going to wake up in the morning and realize that I have no idea what I'm doing. Right? Like, he's got the skill, he's got the past, but it's still the biggest thing he's ever done. So as soon as you can say that and say, what would you do? What's the role of a CFO? What's the role of a marketer? And then you learn from other people. Then all of a sudden you're grabbing onto some of their experience and they can learn from you. But it's more that wisdom of the crowd instead of, again, what the school system said was we have to know all this ourselves. Maybe we don't. Maybe everybody in the classroom together combined has enough of the wisdom and answers to be able to pull together an A+ on every test.
I agree. I want to go to that school, my friend. I want to go to that school. So, for those that have listened this far, and I know they're resonating, how can we get maybe a copy of the book, find out more about what you guys got going on, maybe even attend some of the events?
Sure. Yeah. So, both of my current books, Meetings Suck and Double Double, are both available on Amazon and iTunes. Double Double is also available on Audible. We also have all of my videos of my 4 speaking events are available at CameronHerold.com. And then if any of your larger companies are interested in the COO Alliance, they just simply go to the COOalliance.com.
Excellent. All right. So final question here. When I look at, the world we're everybody, we grow up, we change, we become bigger, better. But as we go through that process, Cameron, there's that point where we go, hey, I want to do this entrepreneur thing. I want to be one of them, but we've got that voice as our constant companion in the back of our head. And I know you've done battle with that voice. You've heard it before. It's been there in the morning and late at night. It said things like, you don't even know what you're doing, dude. But yet you've managed to do battle and win. So for a moment, let's pretend that in the next 24 to 48 hours, that the person listening right now who's having that battle right this second will do exactly, and I mean to the letter, what you suggest. What would you ask him or her to do?
Start today. Write down what you want your business to look like 3 years from now. Kind of follow the transcript of the double doubles exercise, the vivid vision, and then share it with everyone around them. Share it with their friends, share it with their peers, share it with coworkers they currently work with. But show everyone what your business looks like 3 years in the future, and then just say to people, how can you help me make it happen? And just trust that you'll figure it out as you go. It's almost like climbing up the stairs at night in a building where you can only see one step ahead of you. Trust that when you get to the 30th step, you'll be able to see the 31st step. When you get to the 31st, you'll see the 32nd. Don't worry about running a company with 50 employees on day one. When you've got 45 employees, having 50 will be a lot easier.
Indeed. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom and being willing to not only write it down, but also do something about it by trying to create some change with your alliance and just letting us know that it's okay to not be good at the beginning. So I definitely appreciate the time that you've invested here with us at the Cashflow Diary.
Awesome, Jay. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. I had fun.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means you probably have 2 books you need to go pick up, right? Because yes, your meetings currently suck, but they don't have to stay that way. And if you really want to grow that revenue, Double Double is probably a good way to do it. And no, I'm not talking about in and out. So it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.